Good morning, everyone. It's Brenda Quintana here, and I am live this morning. It is a bright, sunshiny day. Every day when I get on here, I'm like, what am I going to talk about today other than my card? And today there's not a lot going on, but our neighbors next door they tore down the house that was on their lot, and finally there's some action going on it. And today there was I guess an inspector over there looking at the foundation, and so I find myself enjoying like the small minutia of my life, try to enjoy those details of my life because there's not a lot going on. I have conversations with my mom and dad every day right now, and my mom was in the hospital last month, and she is now home and is doing so much better. She's even driven herself a little bit, picked up her car from servicing at the car dealership. So I feel really good about my mom and herself getting a little bit back to normal. My dad is still in the hospital, and he's just struggling with just repeated infections that they can't seem to get a hold of. So right now he's in the rehab department. So they're working with him to get him more mobile again, but they just can't discharge him or move him on because of just the fact that he just can't seem to knock these infections that he's been having. So I talk to them every day, and every day I'm like, what am I going to talk about today? Because, there's not a whole lot going on in my life except for card making and stamping stuff. And sometimes I really like struggle, because I do want to connect with them every day because they're separate. And I think sometimes I don't want them to not feel connected, right? And I used to talk to them more like once every week or once every 2 weeks because their lives are busy. My life was busy, but now I kind of feel like I need to connect with them every day. And then just at this moment when we're connecting every day, I have like nothing to talk about. So I'll look at things like the next door neighbor's lot and like, oh yeah, they're getting inspected today. And it's just like, you know, normally that would be not something that I would even talk about. So I wonder if you guys are having the same issue when you talk to people. Like, there's just not a whole lot to go on to talk about. I'm not traveling, we're not doing anything. It's just like so funny. But luckily, I have stamping, and there's always new stuff going on in the stamping world. So it's just that some of my other people in my life are probably not as into my stamping as I am, but you guys are. So let's stamp. Let's do some stamping today. So today's Casing Tuesday, and that's the day when we take a card out of the catalog and we give it a makeover. We all work on the same card. So it's kind of like a group activity. And today's card, let me show you. It's an interesting one. It's this one right here. So this card was originally a note card. When I show you the dimensions in a moment, we stretched it out to be a full-size card because most people do the full-size card. But you could definitely do this as a note card as well. This is not a hard sketch in terms of the way things are. The interesting thing about this card, or the way I interpreted it, is that you've got a bunch of things in a row, and then you have one thing that is actually like the focal point. So they stamped that jar several times in a row, but the one of them is just a beautiful bouquet. And I'm just looking at the little bouquet right now. I'm like thinking, that little bouquet doesn't have any stems going into the water. I'm just like, oh, there's something missing in that photo. But anyway, I really think it's quite darling. I think it's a really cute card. But of course, I did something different. So let's show the sketch. So the sketch is really simple. It's like a big white rectangle with two pieces of cardstock or maybe some ribbon on the bottom. You can play with that bottom section. But it's a cute little stripe that is down there at the bottom. So the dimensions, you know, you could do full layers or you could add just a tiny strip. So we give you the dimensions for the full length of the card if you were to layer it. But you could actually also just do like a full 5.5 by 4.25 card base and then just put a little strip on the bottom too. So either way you want to handle that, you can do it that way as well. Let me hide that. So I decided to do something kind of along the same lines, but of course I didn't want to use flowers. I wanted to be different. I wanted to try and do something different. So hello to everyone who's joining this morning. Amy and Bev and Janine and Karen and Dee. Hello, hello, welcome. I'll come back to all of your comments later. Thank you for joining me this morning. So I'm going to flip over to my other camera and hopefully it's working fine here. And there you will see my little card. And this one is using the Way to Goat stamp set. Isn't this cute? Oh my gosh. I don't know who is the stamp artist that does all the cute little animal drawings. I love it. If it's a her or a him, I love her designs. And this time we have a goat stamp set and it is just adorable. And the little greeting says, "You're the goat, the greatest of all time." I love that. I had to get the goat stamp set right from the beginning, but I haven't had a chance to use it yet. So I'm so excited to use it today. And I thought I would make the goat, the special goat, in a different color than expected, just to pop it a little bit. But this card was not hard to make at all. And I'm going to show you how I did it. And here is the stamp set, Way to Goat. So cute. You could use it for a birthday card. And this is kind of like a congratulations celebrations card in my quirky Brenda style. Okay, let me show you how I put this card together. So I started off with a piece of Whisper White, and this piece measures 5.5 by 4.25. And then I took a little strip of the, I'm going to forget the name. I'm going to pull it out so I can remember it. Playing with Patterns 6x6 paper. And a lot of the patterns in here would work, but I used this one here with the kind of So Saffron to about maybe crushed curry in the yellows, like a fade. And so this ended up being cut from about here, so it's almost like a So Saffron. So depending on where you cut from, you're going to have a different part of the fade. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little strip down here, and let me grab a pencil. And I'm going to make myself a pencil mark to help guide me to where I'm going to stamp my goats. Okay, so I'm just using this little piece of paper. I should tell you what the dimensions are, 5.5 by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to take my pencil and make a pencil line right there. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it. It's just a little pencil mark. And that's going to help me when I center everything or put everything on the line. The other thing that will help you with this card is I want this goat right here is actually dead center. So I'm going to make myself a little pencil mark halfway, which is 2 3/4. And that's just going to let me know where to stamp that first goat. We're using basic gray today. Basic gray is no longer a waterproof ink. It is a regular ink. So, but we use that ink with Stampin' Blend, so it will work fine. So I've got this little goat right here, the kind of roundish one. And I'm going to hover this right above the line and where my centering mark is, and just stamp my little goat right there. Now, the one thing that I did do with this stamp to help me, because I'm kind of free stamping him, is I did trim around him so that he would be, so I can see better when I'm stamping. Sometimes I do that with my stamps. Let me grab a little piece of scrap paper, which I'll need in a second. So then I'll come along and do my second stamp. Again, I'm going to hover at the same spot just above the pencil line, and this side of the stamp looks like it is just touching the other goat. Okay? And then finally, I'm going to have one goat that kind of comes off the page because I'm trying to recreate the feel of those flower vases, like all kind of right in a row. And so I'm going to come here, see where the pencil mark is, move them over and shift down. And so we just have a little bit of that last goat on that page. Then we're done with that. And now I'm going to come in with this big goat. And I was a little lazy with this goat. I didn't trim the edges, which I probably should have, because you can see some of the ink is hitting that. So I'll have to be careful when I stamp it. But I trimmed right at the bottom so I could use it to center, or not center, but to line up on my pencil mark. So I'm just gonna add that right there. Doesn't he look cute? Then we just need to do one last stamping, and I did trim around this stamp, and this is the greeting that says you're the goat. And this one, I'm just gonna nestle it right above here, like that. So I have finished with all my stamping. Pretty easy. Well, it is a lot of stamping, but once you've got that down, the rest of the card comes together pretty easily. So I've got Stampin' Blends here. And so I'm going to start off by coloring this big purple goat. And I'm going to use my light, actually, no, I'm going to use my light Highland Heather. And I'm going to highlight certain areas of the goat. I'll use the bullet tip. I'll come along and I'm going to do the tail. And I'm going to do the back of the goat right here and the legs. Anywhere where there is a line, I am going to highlight with my darker color. I'm going to do light purple posy and light Highland Heather. And so I'm just hitting all the highlight marks. And a little bit on the neck right here, and a little bit on her, I don't know, her snout, purple goat. And I'm going to do the top of the head right here. I'll leave the ear blank. And then I'll come in with my light purple posy, and I'm going to use the brush tip. And I'm just going to start brushing. The light purple posy is almost towards the pink side of coloring. So it's a slightly purple, but you could also, if you looked at it next to the Highland Heather, it looks like it's got a little pink in it. But once it dries, it looks more purple. So come along here. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'll switch to the bullet tip, and I'm going to blend out these little marks just a little bit so they blend together. All right, so there is the goat. One last thing, or a couple of things I'm going to do still, is the little flower. I'm going to use Daffodil Delight Dark and just hit the flower. I'm kind of going over top of the flower and going outside the lines a bit. Then I'll come in with my Smoky Slate Light, and I'm just going to hit the horns. And then I'm going to do just a little bit of shading on the goats. I don't want to draw, this is my focal point, the big goat, and these are like the little extra goats. So I'm just going to highlight them just a little bit because I'm mimicking the card, right? I'll do the little horns as well. And then I'm just going to do the highlight marks, just squiggle on them a little bit. And I'll come in and do the feet. And I'll do that for the other two as well. In the horns, and then just the little squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. And I can just see just a little bit right here of the horn. Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Okay. One thing I'm going to do real quick, grab an eraser. I don't know if my line is going to show at all, but I'm just going to come and erase it. Real quick. I always use like a good white eraser, because you don't want to have any, you know, some erasers will leave smudge marks. So make sure you test out your eraser to make sure it doesn't do that. One last thing that you can do, I want to pop this goat a little bit. And a nice way to do that is to use Pool Party. And I'm using the light, and I'm using the bullet tip this time. And I'm just going to go just outside the line. And I'm going to come around and do this goat. This just helps pop the goat. Probably no one's even going to see this little line, but I tell you, it does make a difference to see just a little bit. It just helps make the goat pop a little bit. And I'm just going to do this for the purple goat. I'm not going to do all of the goats. And if you don't want to do this, you don't have to. But it just, oh, I tell you, it just adds a little something. And Pool Party light is just light enough that once it dries, it's just there, just a teeny tiny little bit. And you can't even really tell that it's there. But okay, I did that, come in on the inside here. All right, so let me just hold this up a little bit. This is just freshly done, so it's still fading a bit, but you can kind of see, if you look carefully, the Pool Party line around it. Here's the one that's finished. You can probably barely tell that there's Pool Party around there, but anyway, just something to help pop a little bit and add a little oomph to your card. So now we come in with this little piece of Playing with Patterns paper. You can decide which way to put it. Get my glue going here. And add it right here. Perfect. And then I decided to do a Saffron card base to kind of mimic the ground right here. So this started off as 8.5 by 5.5, and then I scored it in half at 4 1/4. Make sure that it fits on top. Don't need to trim it. And then I'm just going to add it. And the nice thing about adding this to a card base is that I could use like the thin Whisper White. And then you don't see, like if I had stamped right on a thick Whisper White card base, you probably would have seen some of my color come through. So this way I'm avoiding that issue. And the thinner Whisper White is just a really nice layer on a card. Okay, and then I'm gonna grab some of this Bumblebee gingham. This ribbon makes me happy. It's just so bright and happy. Let me grab a couple of things. I'm gonna need scissors and tweezers. So I'll just wrap this around here. Trying to see how much ribbon I need. Okay, so the one thing you want to make sure before you knot this is that it is straight on the inside. And then do your first little knot. And then I love to have locking tweezers. These ones I got at a craft store in the beading section. There was a little set of 4 tweezers, and one of them is a little locking tweezer. I tell you, this is such a handy little tool for tying ribbon, even for tying ribbon for gifts and stuff. It's good to have one of these. When you press it out, it opens up, and then when you let it go, it locks. So it's like a finger. And then I can come in and just tie my second knot. You're being a little stubborn. Okay. And then let that go. And then we'll come in and just trim the ends on an angle. Okay. So you can see how that's come together. And then just one last thing I want to do is I want to add a champagne rhinestone jewel. I'll take my take your pick tool and just grab one of the tiny jewels and just add it to the flower center. And that just brings a little bit more emphasis to the card. So, you know, the flow of this card, I love it because I've got my focal point right here, which is this goat, and everything kind of helps, you know, draw the weight towards there. My little bow is tied here, my little rhinestone jewel is here. So everything else is a supporting element, and then this little guy stands out. I'm so happy with the way this card turned out. I don't know that I would have done this type of layout without seeing that jar first, because that's what inspired me, those jars in a row, and that's what inspired me to put the goat there. Now, I do want to share with you, I did start off with a different stamp set and I made a different card, and I ended up not liking it enough. And so, but I want to show you where my brain was at so you can see, you know, what I was trying to think of. So this is a card that I made with the, oh shoot, what's the name of that stamp set? It is called Gnome for the Holidays. It's in our mini catalog that just started this month. And I think this is cute, but what it somehow the flow wasn't good. I didn't like this greeting way up top here. So I don't know. It was cute, but I just like, yeah, no, I just went on and I decided to go for the goats instead. So you can see kind of I did the same type of thing. Maybe if you have the stamp set, maybe you want to play around with this and see if you can make it up any better than I did with the gnomes. But I kind of did the same thing, you know, with the jars. This, I believe, I stamped in Seaside Spray, the background guys, and then I stamped the regular gnome in black, and I colored him. So yeah, just a little different something, but I decided to go with the goat because it filled out the page a little better. Also because I had 2 sizes of goats. That way it kind of mimicked the original card a little better because the flower vase was bigger here, and then this these little guys were shorter. So it just seemed to make a little bit more sense. I don't know. What do you think? Do you like the gnomes or the goats? I don't know. I just decided to go for the goats. You know, you make something and then you change your mind on it. All right, I'm gonna go through and read comments now. So Amy's in Washington and it was 100 yesterday. Ooh, that's hot. That's really, really hot. I've heard that the West Coast is getting hammered with heat. Thank you, Bev, for your concern over my parents. You know, I'm very happy that my mom's doing better, and I'm so thankful that I'm still able to talk to them every day, even though I can't see them. Like, I'm so thankful that I can talk to my dad. My dad had a stroke a few years ago, so his speech is a little impaired, but I try to spend as much time with him as he's able and willing to. So often we spend half an hour on the phone, and what I try to do is I try to pick news stories. Like I look up the news for the area where he lives, and I talk about that with him. And so, like, if a news story is happening on one part of the lake, we'll talk about, oh, where's that? And so I try to get him engaged and stuff too. I want him to know that, it sucks that no one can visit, not even my mom. No one can visit, not my sister who's a nurse at the hospital. They're not allowed to visit because it's all during this era. We all have to be very contained, but I still am able to talk to him every day. So I'm just thankful for having that ability, right? And that it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Because, like, what? When I was a college student, long distance was expensive. I didn't call my parents that often because it was so expensive. Anyway, as we move on. Okay, let me see if there's anything I need to address. Dee said the pool party around the purple goat really makes the image stand out more. Great tip. Yeah, I love that tip. I use pool party, and I also use the light purple posy, but since my goat was using purple posy, I switched to the pool party, pool party is one that I use quite often because it kind of mimics a blue sky. Dee said, have started using the locking tweezers too for my bows and knots, and it's a really great tip. Yeah, get yourself a pair of locking tweezers for bow tying. It just really, really helps. Then you can really take your time tying the bow, and I think it makes you a better bow tire in the long run. All right. Bev says she likes both cards. Thank you, Bev. Yeah, and Bev said that's a great idea to share the local news. Yeah, like if you don't have anything to talk about, like my mom said sometimes too, she finds it hard because there's not a lot happening in her life when she calls and I tell her, well, why don't you pick like a memory from the past and talk about it? And it just like it's good to have something advanced to talk about because sometimes, especially when a person isn't as easy to talk to because they're having speech difficulties, it's good to have something that you can talk about and engage with them and kind of weave them into your story and stuff. So we try and do that because otherwise, just like today on my live, it's sometimes really hard because, other than stamping, there's not a whole lot going on in my life. So I need to bring in elements, even if they're just kind of like my day-to-day minutia of what I'm doing. All right. Okay, Dee has a question. How do you feel about putting messages on the inside of a card with a dimensional? I have done it a time or two, but not sure if anyone else has good luck with that. So, oh, you know what? I can share with you. I made a card today that for my niece who just graduated. So I'll just share this card with you. So this one was a cute card. I got the idea. I wasn't going to make graduation cards for my blog or anything. So when I need a card for an occasion, I go on Pinterest, just like many of you do. And I search graduation cards 2020 because I wanted to use current stuff, but I didn't necessarily want to invent a card right then and there. I didn't have time. I needed to make the card quickly this morning. So this is the card that I made. And if you want a tutorial for this, Frenchie Stamps, she's the one that I borrowed the dimensions from. Anyway, I made this in my niece's school colors, so that's kind of cool. These are, I don't know if you can kind of see, oops, there we go. I used little jewels for the little buttons right here. And then on the inside, this is what I wanted to show you, Dee. Oh, shoot, I've got the inside. I have haven't attached the inside yet because my husband, it's his niece. Well, it's our niece, but it's his side of the family. So I'm going to have him write the card. So what I did, I don't like to use dimensionals, but I stamped on a little banner, a little greeting, and I did that. Sometimes on the inside of the card, I mean, you can absolutely use dimensionals, but I feel like since this card's going to go in the mail, it's going to get squished. So I just kind of like just did layering white on white, and I did a little banner, or you could do a little punch shape or something like that. And it just, differentiates it a bit. You can absolutely use dimensionals if you want to. But, sometimes it's nice just to have it layered up a little bit with like a punch shape or a die cut shape, or in this case, I just used the banner triple punch, banner trio punch to do that. So yeah, that was the little card that I made this morning, and I hope that it helps a little bit. Whatever. I think if it's something you want to draw attention to, put it on dimensionals. I don't think it's going to hurt any. I don't know what the card looks like once you get it. I don't know if the dimensionals look funny or wrinkle the greeting on the inside. I don't think it does because it doesn't usually do that on the outside. So it probably should be fine. I love the thorough greeting, the thorough quote for graduating senior. Yeah, I love that. We had another stamp set that had that greeting on it too. And I was like looking through all the greetings this morning, and that one stood out. So I was like, okay, let's do that one. Let's get it done. I wanted a quick card, and I wanted to do it in her graduating colors. She graduated this weekend, my niece, Jessica. And so we need to send off a little gift and a card. So I'm trying to get that all done. Dee said, I tried the glue dots too, and it raised it up a little, but wasn't sure about the dimensionals. Yeah, absolutely try it. Usually we use dimensionals more on the outside of a card, but you want to draw attention to a greeting, then pop it up, give it a try. All right, guys, I am aiming to have a something special for you on Friday. I'm not sure if it's going to be a 3D or a fancy fold. I haven't decided yet. So look for me on Friday. I will be on YouTube, and I'm going to try and aim for like the morning, like around 10 a.m., just like I do this live. So I hope to see you then. In the meantime, I should show you one more thing. I should show you my new tutorial. So I'm come into microphone view. So I have a new paid tutorial on my site, and it's these little boxes made with the stitched triangles dies, and there's a trio of them. It's hard for me to hold all three of them up at the same time, but and there's the baby one. And so you can also use them to make pies. So isn't this cute? An apple pie, cute, and then a pumpkin pie. So yeah, so that's on my blog. So when you order from me, you can choose that one as one of your free tutorials. All right, guys, I will see you on Friday, okay? And have a great week until then. Take care. Bye-bye.